So Ken, will the builder finish part of the basement before we complete the home? Well, for 30 years in this business, the answer has always been no. Why is that? Why don't builders want to finish basements here in Metro Atlanta? Well, there are some technical reasons why, everything from the permitting process to the way subs are going to price out construction, all the way to the way appraisers will value that space. That makes the builders not want to do that. But the bottom line for you is you're going to have to take care of that after you close. So in this video, we want to show you some of the things that you need to know before you get started and some hacks that you can have to make sure it's less expensive when you're ready to finish your basement. So you may be wondering why we're starting on the first floor when this is a video all about basements. Well, there's a reason for that. The same walls that you're going to see on the first floor are the same walls that you're going to see in the basement. So if you want to know what that's going to look like, it's best to start here. So I'm right by the front door. As you look over here to your left, this is a large living room with an arched opening. As we swing back over to my right, you've got the dining room with a couple of different arched openings, very open, very light. As we move behind the stairs down the foyer, we stop here at the family room. This is a 2-story space. I'm actually standing underneath a 16-foot beam, which opens up. This is a large load-bearing wall. Then you have the wall of windows on the back of the space. The fireplace off to my left. And then over this direction, you have the large opening, another 16-foot opening, large 2-story wall, and then your kitchen to the rear. If you notice, there's no walls here in the kitchen space, and we'll see that mirrored when we go back downstairs. The last part of the first floor, directly behind the stairs, we have a large full bath, and then behind the bath, we also have a bedroom. Now let's head downstairs and see these same spaces in an unfinished space. All right, so now I'm at the bottom of the stairs here in the basement. I'm directly underneath the front door. So as I look off to my left, you can see that would be underneath the living room. This is a side daylight basement, so the windows for this particular layout are here on the left-hand side of the property. Directly over here to my right is underneath the dining room, this large space here. All we've done is replace that larger arched opening with a 6-foot opening, and then another 6-foot opening off the bottom hallway. As I come towards the family room, if you recall, we had the 16-foot opening here. What we've done now is 2 6-foot openings, but the room dimensions are the same. The back concrete wall is directly underneath the wall of windows upstairs. Off to my right is the large, wide open space where the kitchen is. Off to my left, actually now still my right, this is the downstairs bedroom. Now here's the funny thing about this. You see this wall in the way, and it prevents you from getting very much light in here. But if you were to put a beam into this space, you can have all the daylight that you need to get into this basement. So just because the windows are on the side does not mean that this basement has to be more dark than the other way, which we're going to show you later in the video. And finally, down here on our right, we have mirrored the bathroom that's directly above us down here as well. So anytime that you're thinking about what a basement's gonna look like, if you can't imagine it, if you go upstairs, you'll get a great idea of how those room dimensions are, because 99% of the time, the basement plan is gonna mirror the upstairs load-bearing walls. So there are 2 primary ways that we're going to frame in our basements. Earlier in the video, you saw the daylight where it's on the side of the home. Here I'm in a home where the daylight is in the rear of the home. That's the second way that we frame that. That's going to determine on how the land is sloped before we get started. But when we have a daylight to the rear, the major benefit of that is you're able to put windows across the entire back of the structure, and that gives you more area to have more windows for more rooms with daylight when you finish off the basement. So the question is, why would anyone ever want to do it the other way? Well, if you look over to our left, you'll see that in this space, you've got the basement open with windows, but if you want to put in a media room, a side daylight basement creates a fantastic space that's enclosed on all sides so that you can put in a theater room, media room, have the darkness that you need to make that thing exceptional for you. So the major difference between a daylight walkout to the rear of the home and a daylight walkout to the side has to do with how you access the backyard. When the daylight is in the back, you actually walk out onto a patio underneath the deck. So we're on the basement level, and as you can see, you're going to access your backyard directly from the basement. You can add a set of stairs from the top level, but it gives you two actual living spaces, the deck off the first floor and the patio off the basement. When we have a side daylight basement, it's going to be very different. So a daylight on the side basement, very different. As you can see, there's very, very little patio here. This is not a primary exit space for the home. And typically there's very little space between the homes. So the key to this is that the backyard is going to be accessible primarily from the first floor. So I want to give you a couple of hacks for when you're having your home built to save you money later in the process when you decide to finish the basement. The first revolves around the power. This particular home is around 4,000 square feet. The basement's around 2,000 square feet. It's pulling a lot of energy just to have the home. If you decide to finish off this other 2,000 square feet, you're going to end up with a situation where you're going to run out of power. So what the builder can do, this is the panel box. This is a 200 amp service from the local utility. That's what this large power supply is here. The builder can actually ask for 2 services to your home to give you 400 amps of power service. That will handle everything from electric cars, future pools, and especially finished basements. The second hack related to plumbing deals with this. This is where your sewer line for your first floor and your upstairs comes down and goes into the foundation to tie into the sewer system where it's evacuating the home. Anywhere where you have one of these drops from the first floor to the basement, you can tie in another sink outlet. You can put in a washing machine, possibly even a kitchenette. Or if you have a specific location where you want to put a sink, you can have the plumber put that in before you ever pour the slab. So the third hack has to do with a heating and air system for the first floor of the home. Most builders are going to take that unit and put it in the basement and run the pipes up high on the ceiling. At a minimum, that's going to create a lot of extra space that you have to work around. It could be to the place where you actually have to put a drop ceiling in. So a quality builder has the ability to put both of those systems for the first floor and the second floor up in the attic to give you a clean ceiling to work with when you're ready to design your space. Well, the last and most important hack for you is if you decide that you want to open up your spaces. As you can see here, our builder is putting these 6-foot openings across this wall. On the other side, we don't have any opening at all across this wall, but we can put a beam into any of that. During the framing stage, we can come in and put an engineered beam to open up that space and make it look exactly like the first floor. If we do this at this stage, it can cost anywhere from $800 to a couple of grand. If you wait and do this when you decide to finish the basement, they're going to have to jack the home up, make sure that they put in a lot of support and tear this wall out and install a beam. It'll be much more expensive and much worse for your home. So I want to conclude this video with a little bit of market information about basements here in Metro Atlanta. Over half of the resale homes in Atlanta are not going to have a finished basement. So that means that it's not the norm here for people to go ahead and spend that money to finish that space. That primarily has to do with the overall cost of that process. You could run anywhere from $50,000 up to, I've seen as much as $200,000 to finish off that space. I will do another video down the road that'll give you some tips that you can use to try and find the right contractor to give you the best value, the best bang for your buck when you decide to finish the basement. As always, if you have any comments or any questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can like the video. If you want to hear more information about what we're talking about with new construction practices and some of the tricks that I've picked up in my career, feel free to subscribe to the channel, and we hope to see you again soon.